I worked with a student, everybody labeled as a problem. And when I found out it had nothing to do with behavior, and the crazy part is, this isn't rare. This is happening every day in classrooms everywhere. But the way it gets handled is almost always the same. We focus on what the student did, but we don't fully look at what led up to it. And that's where everything starts going wrong. Once a student gets labeled bad, disruptive, a problem, that label follows them everywhere. It doesn't matter what class they walk into, the expectation is already set. Teachers are already watching them differently. The patience is shorter, the benefit of the doubt is gone. And now, every little thing they do just confirms what people already believed. And the student feels that. Even if nobody says it directly, they feel it. So now, you got a student walking into an environment where they already feel misunderstood, they already feel judged, they already feel like people expect something from them, and now every interaction becomes defensive. Not because they woke up wanting to be a problem, but because that's the position they've been put in. And people miss that part. They think it starts with behavior. It doesn't. It starts with perception. That student I mentioned, if you watched him from the outside, you say the same thing everybody else says. He's always doing something. He don't listen. He just don't care. But when I actually sat down with him, it gave him space to talk. It was completely different. There was frustration, stuff going on outside of the school, situations he didn't know how to explain. And the biggest thing, he didn't feel understood by anybody in that building. And that's when it clicked for me. What we call behavior is just communication. It doesn't look like communication in the way adults are used to. So instead of asking, what is this student trying to express, we jump straight to, how do we correct this? And now we're trying to fix something. We're trying to fix something we don't even understand. So think about it like this. If a student is frustrated but doesn't know how to say it, it's going to come out as attitude. If a student feels disrespected but doesn't feel safe expressing it, it might come off as defiance. If a student is overwhelmed but doesn't have language for it, it might look like shutting down. But in all situations, the behavior isn't random. It's the response. And here's where schools get stuck. Most systems are built to respond to behavior quickly. Correct it, redirect it, remove it, but not necessarily understand it. So what happens is the behavior might stop in a moment, but the reason behind it never gets addressed. So it comes back again and again and again. And now we're back to that same student, still getting in trouble, still being correct, still being labeled, but nothing is actually changing because nobody addressed what was underneath it. So if you're working with students, the shift isn't complicated, but it is intentional. You have to stop starting with, what did they do? And start asking, what might they be trying to express? Because that question alone changes how you see the situation. Most students don't need to be controlled. They need to be understood. And until that changes, the behavior won't. And the reason this keeps happening is because a lot of environments are built for control, not understanding. And I get it. You got classroom structures, expectations, things that have to get done. But when everything is built around control, you miss what the student is actually experiencing. Because from the student's perspective, they're not thinking, I'm disrupting the environment. They're thinking, nobody understands me. Nobody is listening. I'm just trying to deal with what I'm dealing with. But that never gets said out loud. It never gets said out loud. And it's not even just students. Adults do the same thing. People go to work frustrated, overwhelmed, dealing with things in their personal life, and it comes out in how they talk, how they react, how they carry themselves. But because they're older, we don't call it behavior. We call it stress, right? Or attitude, or they just having a bad day. Think about that. But with students, we don't give them the same understanding. See the difference? So now think about that. A student is dealing with real emotions, real situations, but doesn't have the language or the space to express it. And the only time it gets attention is when it turns to behavior. So that means the system is reacting to the outcome, not the buildup. And that's why it feels like the same student keeps having the same issues because the root never got addressed. I've seen this with multiple students, where once you actually give them space, they start expressing what's going on. Their whole behavior shifts, not because somebody punished them, but because somebody finally understood them. Somebody finally understood them. And this is where the real change happens. Not in a controlling behavior, but in giving students a way to express what they're feeling before it turns into something else. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's just giving them a moment, asking the right questions, or creating a system where they can actually communicate what's going on with them consistently, not just when something goes wrong. Because if students had a real outlet, a consistent way to express what they feel, you wouldn't see as many situations escalate the way that they do. And that's really the shift. Not seeing behavior as the problem, but seeing it as a signal. Because once you understand the signal, you stop reacting the same way. And that's when things actually start to change. Most students don't need more control. They need more understanding. And if that doesn't change, what ends up happening is students start adapting to their environment instead of growing in it. Some of them become more reactive, pushing back, acting out more because that's the only way they feel seen. And then others, they do the opposite. They get quiet, they shut down, they stop expressing anything at all. And those are the ones people miss because they're not causing problems. But that doesn't mean they're okay. So now you got two types of students. One expressing everything the wrong way, and the ones not expressing anything at all. And both of them need the same thing, a real way to be understood. And if we're being honest, a lot of people watching this probably relate to that too, because most of us weren't taught how to express what we feel either. We just learned how to manage it, hide it, or deal with it on our own. And that's why you see the same patterns later in life. People holding things until they explode, or people shutting down completely and not saying anything. It doesn't start in adulthood. It starts early. So when we talk about students, this isn't just about behavior in the classroom. This is about how we learn. This is about how we learn to deal with their emotions for the rest of their life. And if we miss that stage, we're not just dealing with classroom issues, we're setting patterns. And this is where leadership matters. Not just in school, but how we approach people in general. Because leadership isn't just about structure, it's about awareness. It's about being able to recognize what's not being said. Because what people don't say usually matters more than what they do say. So the real question becomes, how do we create environments where students don't have to act out to be understood? How do we give them a way to express what they're feeling before it builds up? And that's something I've been focused on. Building ways for students to actually communicate what's going on with them in real time, consistently, not just when something goes wrong. Because when you give someone a real way to express what they feel, you don't just change their behavior, you change how they experience everything. And that's the difference. Not control, but understanding. Not reaction, but awareness. That's where real change starts.